And you were brigaded with them. Would you have come in contact with them a lot?
Well, they'd
Okay.
go through us, and relieve us.
Yeah.
And we'd be glad to see them come. 'Cause,
Yeah.
oh boy. They were, we'd be quiet.
Yeah.
But they were just the opposite. They'd be noisy.
Would that draw
cursing.
shell
Well, it
fire?
would scare everybody,
Oh,
You get a wild bunch.
yeah. So please tell me about when you first joined. If you could repeat your story about when you first joined.
Well, when I first joined, I had a brother in the West, he was in the artillery, infantry. So I seen him coming home all dressed up, new shoes and everything, and geez, I said, I'd like that too. So I went down, me and another fellow, he was older than me, George Harnish was his name. But I didn't give you your age and the like of that, so the officer said to me, how old are you? I said, I'm 16. I'm sorry, he said, you're too young. So I went home, came back the next week, and he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 20. Okay, good enough, he said, go on. So he let me go on.
That's great. Who was your best friend?
My best friend got shot in Italy, a wacky macaque, he was from Charlottetown. We always chummed around together, right? He was a sergeant when he got shot.
Tell me a bit about him.
Well, he was a hell of a nice fellow, if you were with him. Be against him, because he was pretty rough, eh? Yeah, he carried a Sten gun on his shoulder. The day before he got shot, we went out that afternoon, went into some Italian houses and got some wine out to drink. And next morning we were crawling up along under the vines, and he got shot right in the forehead, right dead center, right ahead of me. And he had the army had given him a lovely watch, pocket watches. And I don't imagine you ever seen them. The railroad give you the same watch. And he had that, and I forgot to take it out of his pockets. Never thought of it, I was too late. But he was not a nice fellow.
It's too bad to hear.
Yeah.
What's your happiest memory of your time with the West Novas?
Well, I guess the happiest time was when I met my brother. I got wounded and come out to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 3 months. And my brother come to see me. It'd be nice.
Tell me about when you got wounded. Where were you and what happened?
We had put in a counterattack just after the Gothic line. And we're out in this field, and we got word to advance. We advanced about 300 yards. Then we got word to, give the outfit cover and fire that was ahead of us so they could get out. And on the way out, a ship mortar landed behind me and got me in the back. I still got a piece of steel side of the head. Yeah.
And then you were out of it for a bit, but then there was...
Well,
yeah?
I never went back in after that. I was in hospital for about 3 months. And they sent me to England. From England I come home, the peace was signed then.
And you were wounded previous to that too,
Yeah.
right? What were the circumstances?
Well, the first time was just a busted eardrum. That's what's wrong with the goddamn damn game.
We need a clear statement.
Okay.
Because he overlapped your question, so
Okay.
and it's such a good question.
Okay, so sorry about this. Could you
Yeah.
please tell me again about what happened the first time you were wounded?
Well, the first time I was wounded, we dug in under a tree. And you were warned never to do that, eh? Because the shell had hit the tree and it bust. And me and this fellow from Charlottetown dug in. We didn't dug in, we found the slip trench already dug. So we said, let's take this one. And through the night they shelled, and one shell busted over our head, busted my eardrum.
Where was that at? What town?
That was after the Gothic line. I can't tell you the name of the town.
No problem. What is the funniest thing you ever saw when you were with West Novas? Do you remember a funny experience?
Well, I guess the funniest thing that happened to me we had a leave coming to me just, we got to Rome. And there was no way of getting in, there was no buses or anything to run because we were up handy the front lines. So the guy said to me, how are you going to get into Rome? So we used to go down to this house at night and drink wine, and there was a nice bicycle sitting in the kitchen. I said, if I can get that bicycle, I can get to Rome. So good enough, we went down about 10 o'clock next morning, me and another fella. And I got him talking to the woman, and I jumped on the bicycle and took off. I had to go about 15 miles to Rome. When I got to Rome, I met my buddy next door at home, Terry Goody was his name. He said, where the heck are you coming from? And I told him, he laughed. So I just set the bicycle up against the side of the building. There was a big bar in the Americans. And I went inside, and I met my next door neighbor, Howard Murphy, was there. He was a Canadian, but he was dressed in the Yankee uniform. I said, what are you doing in the Yankee uniform? Oh, he said, Leo, you get more girls and you have more money. The Americans got more money than the Canadians, eh? Yeah, he said, you get more money and you get more women. So that was his idea. So I stayed with him a few days in Rome. We had an awful time.
I imagine you had a great time.
But the Americans did get a lot more money than the average soldier, eh? Still do today, I guess.
What was the bravest thing you ever saw?
Well, the scariest thing I used to hate is going out on patrol at night. What we'd do, you'd take 2 or 3 fellas with you, and you'd go out into the German lines and just lay there and watch what's going on. You'd know then if they're going to put in an attack, or they were going to back up, or what they were going to do. And that was the scariest thing, because you were in there, you had your rifle and everything, but you had to be awful careful, because if they saw you, they'd shoot you right there.
Did you have some close calls?
Yes, very close calls. Like the day I got wounded, we had made a push, and we got up about 300 yards, and the officer said, give them cover and fire, we got to go back out. So we give the guys, you'd shoot over their head and let them out. So we done that, and they got out, and then it come time for us to go back, and they were giving us cover and fire, and a mortar landed right behind me and got me in the back, and it knocked me out, eh? So when I come to, there was 2 fellas carrying me under the arms, eh? And I wasn't sore or nothing. I said, I'm all right, let me go. They let me go, and I just fell down on the ground. They had to pick me up again. Big Tony was one fellow's name. They had to pick me up again and start again. So they took me into this house, and the Protestants have ministered, and the Catholics have a priest, eh? So I heard this fellow talking, and it was my next door minister at home. He was Mr. Phillips, but he was English descent, and when you heard him talking, you'd always remember his English accent, eh? So he came in through, and I was laying behind the door, and he looked at my tag and saw I was an RC, so he was looking after the Protestants, eh? He went on. So I felt terrible. I couldn't talk, so the orderly came in, and I pointed to the minister, and he went over and tapped him on the shoulder and said, that man wants to see you back there. He came back, oh my heavens, my next door neighbor, he said. Well, he got an awful surprise. The next time I seen him was in the Legion in Alberton at home after the war was over. But he felt terrible bad. He said, Leo, he said a prayer for me, and he said, I'll be in to see you tomorrow, but he knew I wouldn't be there because they were moving me back to the hospital. But he felt terrible bad to go by me. And when I lived about 100 feet from him at home.
What a story.
I didn't even know he was in the army.
That's wild. What did you hate most about the war?
Well, it'd be going in on attacks would be the worst, because you were scared, eh? Once you got the word you were going in, we mostly always had a church service or something like that, and then we'd go in, eh? That was the scariest, just waiting. Now I had a letter in my tunic pocket. It was on this side. I got from my mother at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were going in at 3 and I didn't read it. I just put it in my pocket. And I took a piece of shrapnel, come in under my arm, and made a, just like when you open it, it's a Valentine. Just took the center right out of it. My house burnt here 3 years ago and I lost it. But I was quite proud of that.
Wow. That's something. Jeez, you're so lucky. Who was your favorite officer or NCO?
Oh, officer was Reed from Halifax. He was a nice fellow. Then we had a Captain Smith from Charlottetown. He'd come in through, like before the officer inspecting everything, he'd come in through the huts in England and he'd say, boys, get things ready, there's an officer coming through. And he was an officer. It sounded awful funny, but he'd warn us.
That's great. Did he serve through the
Oh,
campaign
yes,
too?
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. He was Captain Smith, he was in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island.
Did he make it through?
Yeah, he made it through. Well, see, he was in the artillery. Now, the artillery weren't losing no amount of men because we were like, we were 25 miles from London, outside of London. We were in what they call the Blitz, shooting down the Germans. But it was all radar, You didn't have to look up in the air or nothing. You just followed the dial that was in front of you.
What was the toughest battle that you had to go through?
Well, I guess the one where I got wounded would be the worst,
Can you describe it? What your memories of it from the morning?
Well, we got word that we were going to make an attack. So when you get that, you kind of start worrying, will I make it? Will I come through? So we went in about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was only in about half an hour, I suppose, when I got in. Well, I don't know how long I was out, but it's a funny thing when you get hit like that, you're not sore or nothing. I didn't even know I was hit in the back, but a piece of steel got me right in the back, And I had my pay book in front there, it took the center right out of it. Piece of steel. I still have a piece of steel on the side of the head here. Small shrapnel, they call it.
Do you know if in a firefight you ever hit an enemy?
Oh yes. Yes. There was one big German, he was blonde, and he was over 6 feet, and there was 6 of us, I think, and he come right after us with the gun. He pointed, he was going to shoot us, so I don't know which one of us shot him. But I looked in his pay book the next day when we had nothing to do, and he was bidding goodbye to his daughter, I figured, on the station platform. Because the Indians, the Germans were when they're all blonde, see? And he was bidding his wife goodbye. He said how foolish he was. All he had to do was throw the rifle down. We wouldn't have shot him. That's how good of men they were. They didn't back down from nobody. That was the German paratroopers.
Where was that at?
That was outside of Rome.
Hey, how you doing? Oh, you got a stuff for him?
Yeah.
There's a thing for you there, put that in the, there we go, lose it.
Got
Right, and we're almost done here too. So, do you want to watch the last little bit and see if you wanted to maybe talk to us right after about your time, then that'd be great. I'm gonna hold that for you while you're.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay, and then I've just got like 3 more questions.
Right.
Okay. What was the closest you ever saw a fellow Canadian soldier get hit near you? I mean.
Well, this wacky McAcken was killed right in front of me. We were crawling up a bunch of grapevines, following the fence along, eh?
Right. So you did, that was the experience,
That was the
okay.
experience.
Okay.
The
you
sniper
told me.
was over in the
Yeah.
church, and
Yeah.
he got him right in the forehead.
What were your thoughts on the Germans? What did you think of the Germans that you had to fight?
Well, they were good men. We were nervous of them. You know, when you had to go in, you'd worry about it because you didn't know whether you were going to live through it or not.
What do you think was the worst thing you ever saw in your time in the West Novas?
Well, I've seen, I don't know, the officer, we came into a village this night, and those people, the man and woman and his kid, didn't want to leave the house because they had animals in it, eh? And the sergeant told them to get out in Italian, and they didn't want to go, and the other officer said, shoot them. When they heard that, they left. And I thought that was pretty, you know, because it was the kids who was the worst, eh? I went, this afternoon we pulled back to around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and when you went into a house, you always searched it to see what was in it. There was a hole going up in the attic, so I opened the hole and went up. And here was a young girl there, she'd be about 16 or 17. But she had a lovely home knit sweater. I asked her for the sweater, she'd give it to me, and she started to cry, so I gave it back to her. And I closed the hole, and I never told the boys she was there because, you know, what men is like in the front lines. So I often wondered what become of her. Yeah.
Well, that's good. We got some great stuff. Thank you so very much, Leo, and we'll